Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. So, mashallah, I did a sermon, and in that sermon, I talked about Ibrahim from surah number 16, verse number 120. And there was a reason to about that, and another place where God talks about him. And I was gonna combine both to give you some idea. And so let me read surah number 16, verse number 120. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن إبراهيم كان أمة قانتا لله حنيفا ولم يك من المشركين شاكرا لأنعمه اجتباه وهداه إلى صراط مستقيم وآتيناه في الدنيا حسنة وإنه في الآخرة لمن الصالحين. So this was from verse 120 all the way 121 and 122. The reason I want to emphasize, I'll talk a little bit about that I was not able to talk in detail in the sermon, and there was a very important point that I really want to talk about in these verses, and then along with the other part that I said, inshallah, I'll talk about. So let me open that part of the sermon. So here God is talking about Ibrahim. That in 120 God says that the heading is Ibrahim. Abraham was indeed an exemplary vanguard in his submission to God, a monotheist who never worshipped idols. Because he was appreciative of his Lord's blessings, he chose him and guided him in the straight path. So this was very important to understand, that God says that he was appreciative of his Lord's blessings. So also in the sermon, mashallah, I talked about that appreciation is so far deep that we can possibly never imagine. It's very, very heavy thing, or call it appreciation, being thankful, understanding. I mean, there's so many levels to be appreciative, to appreciate. The more you dig, it seems like it's the more you see things in appreciation. When you learn about something, when somebody's tell you that, oh, this is a very valuable thing, you gotta be, like, for example, a cell phone, and you say you gotta be appreciative, this is a very important thing, and you have no idea what a cell phone is. The more you learn about cell phone, the more you start to, oh wow, this can do this can do that. Then the more you have understanding, the more you will be appreciative. You were appreciative, suppose you were told to be appreciative, and you were appreciative. But the more you understand, it's going to start coming out of your heart. Oh my God, I can do this. I used to sit on the computer, or I would do this and I would do that for hours, and this had made my job easy. And along the line, when you learn more things, you know the appreciation will be like coming more and more from your heart. and then the more you learn about who made the cell phone, and who's all those things, that when you start combining the benefits and the one who gave you, who's merciful towards you, when you start plugging in more and more things, the appreciation will set new and new limits to you. It will get more and more deeper in your heart, the appreciation. So it is just amazing, the appreciation. And then look at Ibrahim. God says that because, in Surah 16 verse 121, because he was appreciative of his Lord's blessings, because he chose him and guided him in the straight path. Imagine that, where this appreciation can take us. If we focus on appreciation, this is very heavy, very heavy. being appreciative. This is very heavy, and mashallah, it just makes me, sometimes it goes make my mind numb, that who are even we to appreciate God? I mean, this is, let me explain to you that, for example, if there's somebody who was a very powerful, a king or someone, who saw a poor man and he helped him, he gave him a house and work and everything, and then he said, and the king didn't lose anything. He said, oh, it's a poor man, let me just help him. And the poor man was so happy. Now he has a house, he was homeless, he has a work, and he's living a good life now. And he goes to the palace, king's palace, and he says, may I talk to the king? And the guards would be like, wouldn't even let him go inside. He's like, who are you? He said, the king helped me. I just want to say thanks to the king. And the guards is like, do you know who you are? The king doesn't have time for you. You can just, write a note. We'll give it to him. And you're like, I just want to say thanks. Can I say just one time thank? Can I just see him and this day? I'm out of bottom of my heart, I want to say thanks to him. And the king is, and the guard's like, no, you cannot, man. Give us a note. I will give it to him. And if king feels like, we'll let you know. The guy writes a note, thank you note, out of his heart, and then give it to him. And hoping, he doesn't even know the king will read it or not. And he goes and he's hoping at home that hopefully he's like, king will read it and know that my feeling is that I'm so appreciative. I'm so thankful to king for what he did for his for me. To convey, to give, to tell the king, it's one feeling. Yeah, king did all this. He didn't even lose anything. But the feeling that I want my thanks to get to the king. Understand that. This is where you're like, you're nothing. You're like, and you're hoping the king will read it and see my feeling that I am so grateful. And you're hoping the king will read my note out of it. I have so many times we post notes on the online. Somebody made a very good video, whatever it is, and you hope that the person who made it will read there's thousands of people are writing, and you hope that he will read my note, So that kind of thing I'm talking about. That who are we? Sometimes we used to, somebody at work was a very popular person and he's retiring, and they will pass around a thank you card, and you have just a very small place where you can write your feeling, and I'm so thankful to you. You've been when I started in the company, you were my mentor, you helped me, and you're always there, and I'm really grateful. So you don't have a lot of space to write, but you want to write as much in easy words, and then you want to put your name in the bottom, and that little note that this is me saying to you, and you're hoping that you have connection with that person, and you want him to know that you wrote that note and your feelings that you're expressing. So here we're talking about the most gracious, and it always like made me like, this is in itself is a blessing that we are allowed to say thank to God. I mean, God says, the more you thank me, the more I give you. And along so many things, God talks about being appreciative. Here God talks about, and he was appreciative of God's blessing, his Lord's blessing. Because of that, he was guided in the straight path. I mean, think about that. I mean, here that poor man could not even relay his message to the king, that how thankful I am. Here, the most gracious is giving us an open door. Open door. It's like the king opening a big door. It says, thankful door. Anybody can walk in and meet the king any time of the day, middle of the night. King say, wake me up. And you don't worry about you're going to make me upset. You can come in and wake me up and say thanks to me. I don't mind. That's not going to happen in real life. But here, the most gracious has opened this door is like 24/7 open. Middle of the night, you wake up, you start appreciating God for the blessing that he has given us anytime. And it's not seen that why you disturbing God or who are you and this and that. It's seen as a worship, as a very powerful act of worship. Here Abraham got the guidance because of that. And there's so many verses about in the Quran about how important appreciation is. That they got this and they get that, and along the line, and those were not appreciative. How it's worse the other way. That if you're not appreciative, you're gonna suffer the consequences of that. You're gonna suffer the consequences. If you're not appreciative, it's even. I mean, it's just amazing that if you're not appreciative, hell would be your destination. And it feels good. It feels good to see that our Lord wants appreciation from us. I mean, not only that you think that who am I to thank God? Who am I to say thanks to God? Like God wants us to say thanks to Him. I mean, it feels like my Lord wants this from me, and you forget about everything else. You come to God with like, how lucky I am that my Lord, my Rabb is literally requiring me to thank to Him. You feel honored. You feel so happy about that my Lord wants me to. You leave everything behind. You're happy that my Lord wants me to thank. My Rabb wants me to thank to Him. That in itself is a whole. So that's what I'm telling mashallah, that this appreciation thing is it's the more you open it, the more you ponder on it, the more it gets deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. So this is where one of the things that mashallah about the appreciation that and then God says in 16:122, we grant him happiness in this life, and in the hereafter he will be with the righteous. I mean, there's so many things we can talk about appreciation. That verse 120, Abraham was indeed an exemplary vanguard in his submission to God, monotheist. He was a monotheist who never worshipped idols. That he was so like passionately worshipping God, like very, very serious about that. And so when he was appreciative truly to God's blessings. That combines with, I mean, you can plug in appreciation in so many ways. Like he was appreciative. I talked about mashallah about self one. Here he knows why he thanking God. That in itself opens another door, another level maybe, that why you're appreciating God. He was appreciative of God. He was appreciative of God for, he was strictly a monotheist. He was like only worshiping God. He's arguing, reasoning with his people, and he's like very strong in that, and I want to worship God alone. In that sense, he knows that God has created everything for him, and when he's thanking God, it's just the reason why you thank. When sometimes you say someone to sorry, if someone did something wrong, and then he says, I'm sorry, the guy is like, do you even know why you're saying sorry? You're just saying sorry to make me feel better, or you actually know what you did. That opens the reason. And when this person really understand what he hurt my feeling, suppose, and he understand that, he understand our relationship, he hurt my feeling, now he coming and telling me that he's sorry because of that, and he realizes it, then it's, you understand why he's saying sorry. If somebody just come and tell you, hurts your feeling, and then you're feeling sad, and then he comes and says, hey man, I'm sorry if I say something, and you're like, you don't even remember what you say. See, it keep opening more and more doors and levels, that the appreciation is so it's so deep, so connected with so many things, that in a way we can never understand. We can just only talk about how Abraham was coming. We don't know the exact angle, or how he was being appreciative, or however it was. We can only just kind of, with God's leave, we can only say that this will maybe appears, and we implore God to forgive us if we misunderstood any part of the verses, and implore God to guide us with understanding, Rabbi zidni ilma, to increase my knowledge and understanding, so we can read your glorious Quran and understand it, mashallah. And any mistake we made, we sincerely ask God for forgive us. We're just trying to read the words and trying to get as much knowledge from the Allah al-Quran, ar-Rahman, And to understand these verses, mashallah. And I also want to emphasize on the verse 122, we granted him happiness in this life, and in the hereafter he was with, and in the hereafter he will be with the righteous. So God says we granted him happiness in this life. So this is something I want to really talk about, that he lived a happy life. He was a righteous person. He lived a happy life, and in the hereafter he will be with the righteous. He will be with the righteous in the hereafter. He lived a happy life. 23 places in the Quran, God says that those who obey God, in a simple way, if you talk about it, those who listen, you say, وَقَالُوا سَمِعْنَا وَأَطَعْنَا. They say we hear and we obey. This is our commitment with God, that we hear and we obey. We don't object and cause corruption and cause confusion and cause something we already understand. When God says in the Quran, there could be verses that we may not understand. But when we read something and it's really simple and straightforward, and we start putting our opinion and crisscrossing and mixing it up and making it difficult for us, end up being confused. And just like the people of Moses, when God says to sacrifice a heifer, very simple, straightforward statement, a commandment that God is giving to them, then they start asking questions. So our job is, this is the whole idea of surah number 2, that we, if you really think about it, why the name heifer, such a long surah with so many laws and so much God is talking about so many things. The name is heifer. It always questioned me for a very, very long time, and we always also knew that the surah number 2 was like, you read, and then the name is cow or heifer, and we were like, why God choose cow? We never understood why cow, why God is named cow in that surah. Now, mashallah, it literally explains why it's such a very important thing that God is teaching us. And the second last verse is, God is saying that right after that, they don't distinction between my messengers, God's messengers. And they say we hear and we obey. This is our submission to God, that we hear and we obey. We don't cause something we don't understand. We can implore God to guide us to understand this something, and the right time comes, or however God knows our condition of understanding, and however that happens, it will happen, inshallah. But our thing is that we say we hear and we obey, and he lived a happy life. So one of the critical points that inshallah I want to make is that sometimes many submitters I see, they are suffering with things that they misunderstood the admission test and the absolute happiness. And Messenger of the Covenant has very clearly explained how the admission test works, even though Quran talks about that God says, we will test you for surely. Like I'm paraphrasing that, if you say you believe and you're just going to go to heaven before we test you, there are verses like that. And Messenger of the Covenant has explained admission test, the process, and how this happens. Like when you say I submit to God alone, and you become a submitter, and you say, literally you're saying, "Qalu sami'na wa ata'na," we will hear and we will obey God. And you will be going through tests. God wants to test us to see what we say in conditions. When this condition gets worse, are we gonna obey God? Are we gonna obey God? And God knows. And right after that verse in Surah 2, the last verse, La yukallifu Allahu nafsan illa wus'aha. God says that. See, this is the whole idea. God pushing that to us, that now you're a submitter. La yukallifu Allahu nafsan illa wus'aha. Then we don't burden somebody beyond their limits. I'm paraphrasing in an easy translation. That you will be tested, but we're not going to put you in a test where you cannot handle. So you will be tested we will be tested according to our limits, God knows our limit, and throughout the process, God will be with us. And so we do our best, any condition, that we devote ourselves to God. We trust God. We believe and trust God that God is with me. The angels, His guardian angels, are with me, and inshallah, everything will be fine. I'm going through the trial, and when you point out one very important thing, it is a mercy of God. It's a mercy of God. God is telling us that I will test you. Had God did not put that in the Quran, that we will not test you. And the minute somebody say, I submit to God alone, submission, yes, we were supposed to devote ourselves to God alone. And after that starts going through trials. And if this person did not know, if God did not mention, this is a huge mercy of God that I will test. God is already telling us that I will test you. Had this not been in the Quran, imagine what would have happened. The person submit to God, and all of a sudden, in a week later or however it is, he start going through the trials. This person will think, I think this is a wrong religion. As soon as I submit to God alone, I'm starting having troubles. I think I was better off before that. And this could be a reason person will leave and go back to this previous religion. That's why it's Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. So merciful. And He is telling us already that you will. So we know that. We are expecting that. We're expecting that something is going to happen, start happening, because we'll be in test. And God already knows our innermost thoughts. God already knows who's going to hell and heaven. The test is to show us our limits, our what we say. Do we really mean it? It is to show us, not to God. He already knows that. Just like teacher when give a test in the class, teacher pretty much have a good idea about students. When the teacher gives test to the student, it's not really it's for the students to know how good they did. But God's system is far above all this. God already knows who's going to heaven and hell. It is to show to us, you say you will submit to God alone, then the minute I set you through a trial starts coming, you start running away. Look, you're not putting your mouth where where your actions are. And God helps us, mashallah, and the test doesn't get over right away. Praise God that you fail the first trial and then you're being kicked out. No, the test can be several years. Messenger doesn't say how many years to be exact, but it says average could be 5 years and could be longer. He's so merciful that He's giving you time upon time after time, that you may ponder and eventually pass the test. So this is very critical. And inshallah, I'm going to make a video about admission test and absolute happiness. And I'm not going to talk too much about the theoretical part. I'm going to talk about, inshallah, in that some practical experiences, that things that actual. I'm not going to make it more theoretical and make it confusing. I want to talk about actual events and things that about experience that and how it goes. And another very important thing, inshallah, I'll talk about in that is about the submission. Inshallah, I will make a video on that. So this way, to the submitters, I've seen, mashallah, observed, I heard different stories, talked to kind of big part of the community believes that Abraham was suffering because he says if you go to surah number 26 verse 69 all the way, if you read to until verse 85, here we know that Abraham was in his community, he's reasoning with them, he was explaining to them, and verse 69, narrate to them Abraham's history. He said to his father and his people, what is this you are worshipping? They said, we worship statues, we totally devoted to them. He said, can they hear you when you implore? Can they benefit you or harm you? They said, no, but we found our parents doing this. He said, do you see these idols that you worship? You and your ancestors, I'm against them, for I am devoted only to the Lord of the universe. So here to this part, he's telling them, do they hear you when you implore them? What can they do? Other places, Surah 21 is when he breaks the idols, and if they cannot benefit you or harm, they cannot even harm themselves. We cannot even benefit or harm our own self. So why do you devote them? And he's reasoning with them. Then he says in 78, the one who created me and guided me, the one who feeds me and waters me, and when I get sick, he heals me, the one who puts me to death and bring me back to life, the one hopefully will forgive my sins and the day of judgment. My Lord, grant me wisdom, include me with the righteous. So he was with his people. As we learned, he was a youth. He's reasoning with them that these idols cannot do anything, and God is the one guides me, heals me. So they pick out, one of the person who picked out this verse, that when I get sick, he heals me. So based on that, the belief is that if Abraham was such a strong, devoted submitter to God alone, he was a prophet, beloved, God's beloved friend, if he can get sick, we can get sick. So this was the whole idea. And that was linked to the admission test, because Messenger of the Covenant says that read my lips, no problems whatsoever. He's very strongly talking about that. He's not just saying that, yeah, you will get through a submission test and you'll be happy after that. He stressed this so much that you will forget how it feels to be having a headache. Normally people have headache every now and then, their brain is hurting, you take a pill and you feel better after a while. Some people have migraines, severe migraines. So he said, he's really stressing that this is something very, just like God talks about worshiping him alone, very, very serious tone. Many places with so many examples, not just one place. God says, do not do idol worship. It's massively explained in the whole Quran, very much in detail, so many things, to make us understand this is a very important thing. So happiness is bound to happen if you pass the test. During the test, you will be helped with God's leave. We'll be protected from major disasters, but things will be reversible, not permanent damage. So what happens is, many submitters suffer, what I notice is with admission tests, or they keep failing, and it takes so long, and I don't know if God is still testing them or however, wherever they are. So when they continue to suffer many years after that, and they're hoping that they have passed the test, or they're hoping all this have happened and they must be happy now, but when the trial's still happening, they're getting sick. So we are rejecting the absolute happiness. They start following that into that thing that you're gonna suffer. Abraham. Somebody point out that, look, Abraham said, when I get sick, he heals me. So he used to get sick. What are you talking to me about? He used to get sick, and I am, if I'm getting sick, so I'm just an ordinary person. So he used to get sick. Look at him. So that's mean it's part of life until you die. You're gonna get sick. No. Messenger of the Covenant said, read my lips, no problem whatsoever. So if you don't even believe in the Messenger of the Covenant, and then we're putting our opinion on top of that, then that's a whole story. We're getting into a whole different. We're not really. 381 is out of the picture. Surah 3 verse 81 is out of the picture. Period. Because you're not. It's not just by saying by mouth that I believe. When you reject, when you oppose to the idea of what the messenger is saying, and things, we start putting our opinion up. So we may be out of that, and then it's a mercy that God is giving us time. It's a mercy that God's putting us through small trials here and there, to maybe we can come back and realize. When we do the Night of Destiny, one of the slide that on the zikr is, it says, he stressed out that 23 places. It just happens to be 23 places. God says that, paraphrasing that note, that that slide, that you'll be happy, And one of the beautiful thing he says that it's more than something like 1,000 months, but we will do it for nothing. Even though Night of Destiny, from my understanding, he's saying it, even there was no value in it, we will do it for nothing. We will stay up. We will glorify God for nothing. This is a very powerful statement. That we're not here for literally for this massive benefit that's coming in this night, more than 1,000 months of worship. We're here for nothing. This thing, ponder on that a little bit. And this absolute happiness, So this is a very critical point. Do not, we may be crossing more lines that we pull Abraham and we are matching, he was getting sick here and there or whatever. And so who am I? You're arguing with me or telling me that when you pass the test, when you go to God's kingdom, and you will still have problems. No, you will not have problems. Yeah, you may get little pinches here and there. You make small mistakes, and these pinches are mercy of God that you come back right away. You realize, something I must have done something wrong. You bump your foot into the wall or something, and it's hurting you. Nothing is happening random. You immediately think about what happened. If those bumps were or little small pinches were not happening, maybe we may start going off the path. And you see the result. 2 weeks go by, nothing bad happens. That's telling you something. Not even a small, slight problem, like even the size of an atom, nothing happens. And everything's running so smoothly, and you know why. You feel happy, and then all of a sudden something little happens. You run to God, you implore God for forgiveness, and you try to ponder what mistake could I have made, because anything that bad happens to us is from our own mistakes. Anything that good happens is from God, and all these things. So we may be crossing some serious lines, pulling Abraham out of as our weaknesses, our shortfalls, and we putting Abraham on that spot, because this, where Surah number 26, he was with his community, and he's reasoning with these people. That look, Lord, that God, you have made statues, they cannot do anything. Look, God is the one who's doing everything. He's being humble. He's being humble to the point. He said, hopefully on the day of judgment, and are you going to pull this verse too? That hopefully, verse 82, the 26:82, the one who hopefully will forgive my sins on the day of judgment. Are you going to pull that verse too? That we don't even think that he's going to be forgiven on the day of judgment. God says he's my beloved friend, and God says in the other verse 16, Surah 16, verse 122, I think, there God says he will be with the righteous. End of story. Here he's being humbled down, that hopefully my Lord will. God is saying he will be with the righteous. He lived a happy life. So he lived a happy life. So he is in that 23 places in the Quran. He is in that area. So if we pull Ibrahim out of that picture and compare us with our shortfalls and put him, he was that, and we're gonna be suffering too. Think how maybe we're putting ourselves in more serious troubles. We're rejecting the idea of happiness, absolute happiness. That's mean we're rejecting God's verses in the Quran. We are rejecting. We're not accepting. God says you will have a happy life. Very strong verses that many places God used. 23 places in the Quran. So we're rejecting all those. Do we have any idea if we reject God's commandment or a verse, even a word, how bad that can be for us? If we are not happy, take it on us. That I am running short. I'm making mistakes. Absolutely happiness in the hereafter for those who devote themselves to God alone and obey God. Absolute happiness, no doubt about that. I am trying. I'm imploring God to guide me, and you sincerely put your effort into it, and God sees our emotions and our efforts. Inshallah, God will guide us. God is not against us. God loves us. God cares about us. He's so merciful to us. So instead of taking that path, Abraham is being humble that hopefully he will forgive me. We should humble down instead of rejecting and putting Abraham and putting in the spot. He was getting sick, so why are you arguing with me about anything or telling me say this and that? Because I didn't even mention to the person that you're suffering or this and that. I only said that absolute happiness in the here. Once we pass the test, you will be happy. And it's like the person is becoming defensive. I didn't even point at anything. I didn't even know what's going on in this person's life. We were just discussing, and all of a sudden the person become defensive and starts saying that, oh, Abraham used to get sick, so I am get sick, or this and that, whatever it is, what situation. I'm like, I didn't even talk about you, or in a way that if you're suffering or not. I just say that absolute happiness will happen. I think, yeah, something like that. That I said, absolute happiness. So the person become defensive, and I'm sure a whole big community is following the same way. This kind of thoughts that Abraham used to get sick and we get sick. And if you, these are very powerful verses. I'm going to read them again. 16:120. Abraham was indeed an exemplary vanguard in his submission to God, a monotheist who never worshipped idols. Because of he was appreciative of his Lord's blessings, he chose him and guided him in the straight path because of his appreciation. He was such a strong, appreciative person. We granted him happiness in this life, and in the hereafter, he will be with the righteous. We granted him. This is not something God says he live in a happy life. God is using the words, we have to see the words God is using. We granted him. Done. Give Abraham a happy life. It's like you're signing a paper and you put a stamp on it and you say, this is coming from God. Take it. Angels take it to Abraham. You're going to live a happy life. He granted him a happy life. Then we say, he is sick. Think about that. How many red lines we are crossing? Why are we putting Abraham into this picture? For our shortfalls. Why? God says, I granted him. It's a very strong word. I gave somebody a happy life. He possibly live a happy life. He will try to be happy life. God says, I granted him. The most gracious, all-knowing, the all-power. He's saying, I granted him. And we put our opinion on top of it. So after that, inshallah, I'll post the sermon that you can see about the whole, where the end part. That's why I really want to emphasize the end part. It's a very critical, that the admission test and the trials that we would go through and end up being a polished, completely sharp, human being. And then we enter God's kingdom while living on this earth. Your happiness starts here in this world. MashaAllah. Praise God. Assalamu alaikum.